We're back with another one of those podcasts and beats. Hello, everyone. On today's podcast, we're going to focus on cold plunging. It was mentioned recently in one of my other podcasts with Dr. Emily as an underutilized tool for health and fitness. Today, I'll explain to you why, when I would do it, how often, and some of the benefits. So, why it's underutilized? Because cold plunge, honestly, can be cold water immersion, anywhere between 50-55 degree water. So you can get that in your shower. And I say that it's underutilized because it's cheap, affordable, and it's right there in your home. You don't have to go anywhere for it. Now, if you want like the real deal sensation, get like the big results, the scientifically backed results, yeah, maybe you want to plunge into like a tub at the gym or your tub at home. Just be careful when you do it. It doesn't have to be that cold, so you don't have to torture yourself when you're in there. 50-55 degree water is more than enough. So that's why I think it's underutilized, or it's one of those tools that everybody can use. Now, some of the things that I have to go over, there's systematic reviews and meta-analysis that back what I'm going to say. And I'll tell you the reviews. I'll tell you the studies so you can go look them up yourself, okay? One major reason you would do a cold plunge is for exercise recovery. It helps reduce muscle damage, inflammation, and DOMS. For the people who don't know what that means, just delayed onset muscle soreness from like hard workouts. It's usually more like beginner workouts. If you haven't worked out in a long time, you do a heavy workout, you feel sore that day, but really it's like a day or two later, you feel so sore you can barely walk. That's DOMS. And so cold plunging will help prevent that. It can speed up recovery and recovery of strength. So there's science that backs that a cold plunge will help you get to the next workout tomorrow without the lagging effects of fatigue and weakness. And then the obvious part of a cold plunge for exercise recovery is that it works partly through blood vessel constriction, and that limits swelling, right? So if you're limiting swelling, you get a little bit better circulation, reduced swelling, improves range of motion in the joints, and also reduces that soreness, that pain. Another reason you would do cold plunge, some people know this, you may know this, but a lot of people may not. And like I said, you can do this at home. So when I'm talking about the benefits, think about the benefits you're getting right in your shower at home, okay? Another reason you would do a cold plunge is for stress. Stress, sleep, and mood. So in a 2025 meta-analysis, which is like 11 studies for 3,000 people, they found a clear drop in stress levels about 12 hours after doing the cold water immersion or cold plunge. We'll call it cold plunge the rest of the podcast. No big effect right away, other than obviously your adrenaline pump from sitting in the water. But the cold does trigger catecholamines like norepinephrine, which help the body adapt to stress over time, which is good, right? So your ability to deal with stress, cope with stress, is to endure stress, which the cold plunge will cause a little bit of stress in the body, and then you build up these catecholamines and you reduce cortisol levels in the body long term. So it helps with stress tolerance. That same study said that people showed better sleep quality. So cold showers will link to high overall quality of sleep scores. Now here's the trick. There's also a study that says hot showers are best before bed, right? So if you did a cold plunge, and I do agree with that. So if you did a cold plunge for sleep quality, I would do it during the day. You'll get the benefits 12 hours later, where your cortisol levels are lower, catecholamines are high, your stress is down. I would not do it like, hey, I'm going to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock, and I'm going to do a cold plunge 15 minutes before bed. I wouldn't do that because you do get a spike of adrenaline, right? So you do get a spike of endorphins, and that's going to excite you a little bit and give you a little bit of energy, maybe make it a little bit harder for you to fall asleep. So I wouldn't do it right before bed. But if you are looking to improve sleep, I would definitely do cold plunging earlier in the day with latent effects later in the day. Same study said that a session of like 5 to 15 minutes can immediately lift your mood in people who are new to cold plunge. Again, they say new because the more you do the cold plunge, the more tolerant you're going to be. That's good. That is evidence that you are building stress tolerance, because cold plunge is very difficult. And so you have to work on breathing patterns, and you got to kind of pay attention. You got to have the drive to sit in there and tolerate the cold. And so for new beginners, there is like a mood boost because you're doing it 5-10 minutes. You're getting all this excitement, all this adrenaline rush. The people who have been doing it for a while, it doesn't hit them the same way. They look like they could just walk in there and it's not even cold. That's because they've been doing it for a while. What it does is it boosts dopamine, norepinephrine, and endorphins, so you become more alert, focused, and you have a nicer sense of well-being. Okay, so that's for new beginners, like newbies. That being said, you still get the same benefits as someone who's experienced doing cold plunge. It just won't have the same high effect, right, of that excitement. I've been doing it for a while, and I still feel great when I come out of it. Really, immediately, I feel awesome. So it's not like it dulls the effect and then you lose the edge. You still feel it. It's just different for beginners and for people who've been doing it a while. Before I get to what everybody wants to know about cold plunge, which is the metabolism and the fat, I'm going to also talk about immune system and inflammation. So an acute effect is obviously inflammatory markers can rise right after or about an hour after cold plunging. So long-term exposure will modulate immunity, increases T cells, which is just improving your immune system. There was a trial done in, it's a Dutch trial, so done in Europe, where they found a few people who finished cold showers had 29% fewer sick days from work. So 29% less sick than people who don't cold plunge. And I think it's because of the overall immune boost The science is not really backed. It's not strong evidence, obviously, because pharmacy cannot sell you cold water. You can just turn it on and they're already selling it to you, right? They can't sell you cold water in your shower. So there's not a lot of evidence or science to back up the cold plunge. It's just too basic. It's not a lot of money to be made in it. But the few studies that they do have, they're all positive. There's no negative studies. In 2022, a review looking at 104 studies concluded cold water immersion or cold plunge does produce real physiological and biochemical changes and may have some protective health benefits. Obviously, better research is needed. These are just like small studies. The more like the double blinds, the randomized control trials, those are going to be the more the gold standard, like the more strong studies. But for now, for what we have, the results look good. They look really good. And then lastly, for cold plunge, it's for like metabolism, right? So it activates brown fat. It raises your energy spent, right? So you spend more energy, and that's why it activates brown fat. It goes to recruit this energy. It improves your insulin sensitivity. So by doing these things consistently, it'll help reduce and reshape your body fat. Meaning, like if you have 10% body fat, for those super cut up people, it can help you reduce it to 9-8%. If you have 20% body fat, and a lot of it's that white fat that's stored, it can help convert some of that fat to a brown fat that is more easily activated and turned into fat that you use for warming up. So that's what the brown fat is for. It needs it after you get out of the water. You're so cold that it goes and it recruits these fat cells to burn for energy so you can warm your body up. So for people who have excess fat or a lot of white fat, this can mobilize that white fat into brown fat, making it quicker for you to burn. Like a little workout, you know? So I think it's really good for people who are trying to trim the belly. Also excellent for people who are trying to tone up, right? Because you guys already, you're there, you're knocking at the door, right? So a little cold plunge can help like really cut you up. So that, in my opinion, is a really easy way. No lipo, no surgeries, no crazy hardcore workouts. 3 to 6 minutes is the studies. You just sit there. It helps mobilize your fat, which is a gift. You know, it's literally 3 minutes of your time, minus the commute to and from. So that being said, guys, that's cold plunge in a nutshell. Me personally, I do it about 30 times a week. They recommend you don't do it after workouts because it does have an effect on hypertrophy for the men, like who want to look large and like strong. They say it does have an effect on like the size of the muscle. For women who don't care about like looking bulky, you can cold plunge whenever. Pre-workout, post-workout. I would avoid nighttime so you're not messing up with your sleep. But cold plunge is really beneficial. 3 times a week is, I think, more than enough. There's people who are hardcore. They go 7 times a week. I'm not against it. Just be careful because a lot of stress on the body, right? Random acute stresses on the body are good. You build tolerance. Constant stress on the body, and then you're constantly working out and constantly running, could have reverse effects where now your cortisol is very high. You're getting that burnout feeling. There is a science to recovery. Don't feel bad taking a day off, right, from cold plunge or the gym because you need recovery. Without recovery, there are no gains. There's no progress. There's no sin to recover. Now, don't fool yourself and say it's a recovery day. Meanwhile, you've been to the gym 1 time all week. I mean, you've had plenty of time to recover. But if you're the type of person who goes 3-4 times a week, and then maybe one workout was like a little overkill, you want to do a cold plunge day and recover on that day, I'm all for it. I think it's beneficial. It'll help you long term. All right, guys. We'll do another topic in my next podcast. If you guys have any that you're interested in, shoot me an email, shoot me a text, or reply to the Instagram, and we'll make that podcast about that. But for today, there goes cold plunge. I highly recommend it. 3 times a week is more than enough. You'll get really great results. Your immunity will improve. Your sleep will improve. Your exercise tolerance will improve. Your stress tolerance will improve. And you'll reduce some of that belly fat. Who doesn't want that? All right, guys. Thank you again for listening in. See you on the next one.